Last week, the son of El Mencho was given life no parole plus 40 years, convicted of personally ordering hundreds of homicides, including shooting down a military helicopter with a rocket launcher, taking out 9 soldiers. Of course, he's been in custody for some years. It's El Mencho's son, this little boy right here, who grew up to this man right here. And he's not getting out. El Mencho, I'm sure, is not happy about that. Conversely, 2 weeks ago or so, when 29 Mexican criminals were extradited up here to the U.S. as part of their attempt to avoid tariffs, which is good, but at the same time, El Mencho's wife was being released after serving only half her time for money laundering down in Mexico, so she's free. And his daughter is also back in Mexico. She just served a brief couple-year sentence in the United States. So his son took the hit. And perhaps, well, who knows what's going to go on with that. But in general, are Trump's actions effective? Well, interviews with high-level operatives from Culiacan say, some of them are saying, well, I'm actually scared. The military is jumping out. There's been a lot of arrests. There's been military killing of people. So some of those guys are foreseeing at least a temporary downturn in their income. They're laying off some of their workers. They're streamlining operations. Some people have shut down the labs, but a lot of the labs in Culiacan have been shut down already. FETIWAP is very, very easy chemical process. And of course, due to the massive demand here, they'll simply move around. And drug interdiction is often like a game of whack-a-mole. You knock something down in one place, it rises up somewhere else. A perfect example is Fetty, which most of the precursors actually come into the United States because our economy is so large, and those chemicals are used in many legitimate industrial processes. They come in here and then they get sent over, and the labs are just down there. But they can move the labs up here just like they've done with the reefer industry. Up until the mid-2000s, over 50% of revenue of the gentlemen of the South came from the reefers. And as we developed a domestic reefer industry, that dwindled, so they elevated the Method Man and FETIWAP production. But they also, it's a big problem in national parks here in California, they oversee huge illegal grows outdoors and indoor ones, and sell to their, because they have this existing customer base and money laundering base, so they simply produce what they need over here. If you are buying large amounts of high-grade reefers here in Los Angeles, you may well interact with people that seem like Cartel people, and the stuff's being produced here. The Cartel is not a physical location. It is not men with guns. It is a set of relationships. It's bankers that will move money. It's businessmen who understand logistics and who own trucks and boats. It's government officials that will look the other way, that will facilitate, that will even guard and protect. In fact, the last major so-called big crackdown, well, the guy that was in charge of that, he just got 30 years in U.S. federal prison. He was the head of all of Mexican law enforcement, Garcia Luna. So, it's the amounts of money that are made by so many different people. Those men with guns that are getting gunned down by Mexican Marines, or even the narcos that are being taken into custody. I always tell people, someone like El Chapo or something, he's only a pawn. Someone stateside, like say a Big Meech, is not even a pawn. If the drug game is a chess game, people even of the size of Big Meech is not even a pawn, because El Chapo's a pawn. The knights and bishops are generals. They're people that own. There was a group of guys from Pemex, which is the Mexican petroleum of Mexico. Mexico has a lot of produces oil, if you didn't know. Massive corporation. And they contacted some Cartel people. They said, we got $20 million and we will use our tankers. And so if they got caught doing that once, I'm sure they've done it. So the legitimate business community is woven into all that. So it's the Cartel is not a bunch of pistoleros at some ranch, right? They're just the people who do some of the dirty work. And what our military intervention or what our pressure will do will probably just simply disperse that, and it may just make them more sophisticated. They may move the fatty wine production over on this side of the border, just like the reefers. And these same relationships of money launderers and political protection and businessmen with logistical knowledge and capital and regular businesses that they can that has a sufficient monthly capital flow that they can blend in money, illicit money into. That's not gonna go away, even if El Mencho's son got 40 years, or he got life plus 40 years. He's just the fall guy. He's someone that a U.S. politician and law enforcement can say, aha, look, we're doing something. And they are. I mean, it's a difficult problem because it all stems from the demand on the U.S. side. It's increasingly difficult to foresee a future in which even hard drugs are not legalized to some degree, even though the experiments with that have not been good. Portland reversed it because basically they had a law, if they caught you with some METHOD man or Fetty Wap Wap Wap, they just gave you a ticket and they, suggested you get some help. But it needs to be a much more robust system. I mean, it's bad enough to be dabbling in hard drugs, right? But like if you're at the point where you're outside interacting with law enforcement and you have D-rugs in your pocket, I mean, you're pretty off the rails, right? I mean, many people dabble in things in the privacy of their own home, but once you're out on the street getting caught. But anyway, so Portland reversed that because D-rugs just got more and more rampant, overdoses went up, and while we hear talk about Fetty Wap all the time, the MEHOT man is a significant problem. In fact, in LA County, America's biggest county, there's more deaths with that in people's system than in Fetty Wap. And most of the Fetty Waps has METHOD man, but a lot of people die of METHOD man by itself. Very hard on your body, especially the intensely pure stuff that the gentlemen from south of the border are sending up right now. So Trump has been effective in what he said he was going to do. It is stirring up things down there. He did. The threat of the tariffs was real. He has imposed them. What Trump's end game is politically, did he really do this, is about Fetty Wap? Who knows? I will say, again, I mean, if you're somebody who lost a family member or something, the Fetty Wap, you could at least say, well, at least we have a president that's making it seem like he's doing something about it. What are Trump's real intentions, or what's his real agenda? I mean, I will say, I've always said this about Trump. He doesn't drink at all. He doesn't smoke. He tells people they shouldn't drink, which is good. I mean, I drink plenty, but I always tell people who've never had a drink, if you never had one, don't worry, you ain't missing nothing. Same thing with any D-rugs, any of that stuff. You're not missing anything. It's not the end of the world if you do it, but you ain't missing nothing if you don't do it. If you don't drink, you ain't missing nothing. But so the state of events, we have El Mayo in custody over here. We have two of the Chapitos. They're trying to work a deal, probably it's called a universal deal plea, to get maybe a 10 or 11-year sentence for all four of them. In exchange, they've been turning down their Fetty Wap production. But again, it's like I said, it's so easy to make, and the demand is so large here. So now, but also those groups have other things than D-rugs to make them money. The migrant smuggling, I didn't realize till I did the numbers in my head. They're getting, I think with Chinese people, they get 30 to 50,000. Now the Chinese organized crime gets paid to bring them from mainland China and delivers them usually to like Ecuador or something, or somewhere else. Right? But once they're in South America, I think it's $30,000 to $50,000 to get you across the U.S. border. I mean, that means you get, let's just put it in the middle, let's say 40,000. You get 25 people over. That's $1 million profit. Remember, well, I guess they're bribing people. They have costs, but like, that's 25 people. 250 people is 10 million. You smuggle 2,500 Chinese people in, and you might get $100 million. I mean, even if I'm overestimating, you're going to get 30, 40 million. So, big income source. They're stealing oil. And if you noticed a few years ago, if you've been buying avocados and limes for a long time, you might have thought one day, gee, these are sure a lot more expensive than they used to be. That's the tax Cartels are extracting from farmers down there for those valuables. So that's a tariff of their own. So you're paying several tariffs if you buy avocados or limes. So the Cartel is a series of relationships of mainstream people, business people, people in the government, people in the military, lawyers and bankers more than anything. And how do you go after them? Well, that's the dilemma. That's a very difficult question. So, is Trump putting pressure on them physically is good. You should put pressure on them, but I fear it's just something to give the illusion that more is being done than it is. And as far as us using special forces, well, our special forces are not doing missions, because that would violate international law. Now, they probably are here and there secretly, and that's okay. But they're not like down there doing big open maneuvers. They're training Mexican troops. Well, the last time our special forces trained Mexican troops, we got Los Zetas, 2 of whom were part of our recent accepting of those 29 prisoners. So, and now there's a thing going around on YouTube. I got to investigate further, but I can believe it, that several former Green Berets are running one of the Cartels down there. And I've been told by a former Special Forces, personally. Now, he wouldn't tell me where, who, and what, but he said, oh yeah, it's well known that many, I don't want to say many, but more than a few Special Forces guys are floating around South America and Mexico, because a U.S. Special Forces, like a Green Beret especially, but a SEAL too, and there's other ones, they're so highly trained. They're not just trained in shooting, they're trained in training people. So like a couple Green Berets can take 300 villagers guys, right? And in 3 months have them up to snuff as decent soldiers. They can set up, communicate, like very sophisticated communications networks. They are meant to be like a small group of Green Berets and SEALs are like an army in terms of their skill. They can train enough other bodies to help them. And then their skill set in communications and technical stuff, drones, air defense, all of that, counter surveillance, sabotage, espionage, counter espionage. It's dangerous putting them. Again, the last time they helped create Los Zetas, and I was personally told by a former Special Forces that it's well known that there's more than a few of those guys floating around down there. So, again, hard to foresee a future in which you're going to have to legalize this stuff, which I don't really think is good. But these military operations, this is just entertainment, really. Our profit America don't.